The ballroom was glowing that night. Gold chandeliers, champagne bubbles, laughter that had nothing to do with me. It was our 10-year anniversary, but if you walked in, you wouldn't have known it. She was the center of attention, radiant in a silver dress that caught every bit of light in the room. Everyone adored her, I used to. Somewhere between her endless parties and the stories she told about her independent life, I started to feel like a guest in my own marriage. When I walked in, she was already at the microphone, smiling wide, surrounded by friends and her boss, the kind of man who never looked anyone in the eye when he shook hands. I found a seat near the back and pretended not to notice how she barely acknowledged me. Then she spoke. "Tonight," she said, voice trembling with practiced emotion, "I want a toast to my real love, someone who's always understood me better than anyone." The crowd clapped. People laughed and whistled. I didn't. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at him. My throat went dry, but I didn't move. The DJ glanced my way, the same DJ who'd played at our wedding a decade ago. He nodded once. We'd planned this without a word. Her smile never left as the music cut. The room fell into a hush, and then a familiar voice filled the speakers. Her voice, but younger, rawer. "I promise," it said, the same vow from our wedding day. "To love you, to never betray you, to always be proud, to call you my husband." The voice continued. "No matter where life takes us, you will always be my real love." People froze. The boss shifted. She stood motionless, her smile fading, her hand trembling as the recording kept playing the very words she had just thrown at me 10 minutes earlier. Her eyes darted to the DJ booth, then to me. I sat calm. The truth had already spoken. The silence had teeth. When the recording ended, nobody laughed. The room stayed still for a long 10 seconds, long enough for me to count my pulse. Then someone coughed. A chair scraped. A champagne glass clicked against marble, and the spell broke. She tried to laugh, a brittle sound that didn't make it past her lips. "Wow," she said, glancing toward the DJ. "What a surprise." Her voice cracked on the last word. The boss looked at her like he'd seen a headline he didn't want printed. People murmured. Someone whispered my name. Others avoided eye contact. I stood up slowly. Not to make a scene, not to shout or demand an apology. I had already done all that months ago, alone in our kitchen, when she told me I was too predictable. Tonight wasn't about rage. It was about letting truth breathe. I walked past her as if she were a stranger at someone else's event and left her glass of untouched champagne behind. She reached out and grabbed my arm. "You planned this?" she hissed, the perfect smile glued on for the cameras. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. I leaned close enough for only her to hear." "No," I whispered. "You did that 10 minutes ago." Outside, the cold air hit me like a grounding slap. Valets hurried. Guests trickled out, faces half hidden by embarrassment or curiosity. Truth doesn't need a megaphone. It lingers. My phone buzzed. Her name. 2 messages. "We need to talk. Please don't ruin my career." I stared at the screen, remembering how many nights I begged for honesty and got silence instead. Now the silence was mine to give. I turned the phone off, watched the building's lights dim, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. A small, clear relief. We had been different people once. She used to cry during our vows. She used to say ambition would never turn her cold. I believed that. Maybe that was the problem, believing in a promise someone had stopped keeping. I hadn't planned revenge. I wanted closure. So a few weeks earlier, I'd asked the DJ to remaster a snippet of our wedding vows and keep it hidden until I gave the signal. He didn't ask why. He just nodded. When I got home that night, the house was lit. She'd beaten me back somehow, waiting in the kitchen. "We can fix this," she said. Mascara smudged, dress wrinkled. "Fix what?" I asked quietly. "You toasted to your real love. Congratulations." She started crying. The kind of tears meant for an audience, asking for forgiveness without offering truth. I walked past her to the framed wedding photo above the fireplace. That promise from 2010 had been stripped of meaning. I stood there until my throat unclenched. I didn't sleep. The house felt heavy with the kind of silence that isn't peaceful. At 3 in the morning, I went out to the porch, lit a cigarette, and watched the smoke twist into the night. The recording kept playing in my head, but instead of pain, I felt something like gratitude. Not for betrayal, for a forced reckoning. By morning, she was gone. No note, no apology. Absence is an answer too, and I didn't chase her. Chasing ghosts keeps you trapped in their world. Instead, I drove into the office, windows down, the air smelling like freedom. For days, the phone didn't stop. Whispers, gossip. What happened? I ignored them. People love watching a curtain fall, but no one wants to hold the rope. I buried myself in work. I cleaned out the bedroom. I deleted old photos. Every small action felt like an exhale. A few weeks later, she showed up unannounced. No makeup, casual clothes, eyes red but dry. We sat across from each other at the old dining table. She said, I was drunk. It was stupid. I said, you weren't drunk enough to forget who you toasted, and you weren't stupid. You were honest for once. The truth landed like a stone. She tried to explain, to save a piece of the life she'd built, but I had already seen the two of us clearly. You made me feel invisible, I told her. Invisibility, when used right, is power. She cried a little, quietly. I lost everything, she said. You didn't lose everything, I answered. You finally saw what everything really was. When she left that day, the door closed like a period. Silence filled the house, not triumphant, but beginning to breathe. Over the following weeks, things changed. The company restructured. The headlines moved on. I found a small box on my desk with the torn wedding photo taped back together. On the back, you were always more than I let myself admit. No apology. No demand. Just a sentence that felt like a small late truth. I didn't reply. I placed the photo in a drawer as a lesson, not a keepsake. I walked through the house and opened the curtains. Light flooded in. I ran again in the mornings, each step scrubbing away the old life. I stopped being the background figure and started being the person who showed up for himself. Months later at a conference, I saw her across the room. No shouting. No confrontation, just a brief nod. Time folded, then smoothed out. I left early, stepping into the cool night air, and felt peace. The divorce paperwork arrived. I signed it quietly and felt something lift. I drove to the old cabin by the lake, found our wedding ring in a drawer, and let it sink into the water. It caught glints of sunlight on the way down and then was gone. A final small letting go. Life moved forward. New contracts, new projects, days that felt steady and real. The house no longer felt like a museum of what we had been. It felt like a place I could live in again. Sometimes people break you so you can rebuild quieter, stronger, wiser. Sometimes love isn't forever. It's a lesson. The truth, once spoken, even by silence, sets you free. If you liked this, subscribe for more stories where quiet choices speak louder than any toast.